I paid the bill and she ended the marriage, just not with words. With a look. With that smug little tilt of her head when her mother jabbed. Still working at that same job, huh? Like she'd rehearsed the whole damn scene in the mirror. That smirk she gave right after? That was the real signature on the divorce. Not the papers that came weeks later. Not the court filings. No, this was the moment. Quiet Italian place. Her favorite. A bottle of overpriced red I couldn't pronounce. I'd taken care of the reservation, picked her mother up, even wore the stupid shirt she liked. But none of it mattered. Because when she smiled at her mother and said, "I'm done with his salary. It's holding us back," I knew. She didn't say it to me, didn't look at me, just stabbed a fork into her salad like she was breaking ground on her new life. I didn't flinch, didn't argue, just chewed my steak and let the ice from my drink bite a little longer than usual. There was something clean about the silence that followed. Her mother laughed. One of those sharp little nasal chuckles that made waiters blink and couples glance over. I think she liked humiliating me more than her daughter did. A generational sport. The waiter returned with the check. I slid my card into the folder and handed it back before anyone could fake reach for their purse. That's what I did. I paid. Always had. Mortgage, insurance, every one of her passion projects. That ran 6 months and folded like cheap chairs. That bakery she wanted to start? 25 grand for a lease space she never even opened. The photography business? 5 grand on gear that sits in our guest room collecting dust. And don't get me started on the 3 months she thought she was going to become a life coach. So when she rolled her eyes at my salary like it was some embarrassing rash she'd outgrown, I didn't feel rage. Just something colder. Something surgical. She thought I was average. Predictable. Easy to leave. She wasn't wrong. Not about the leaving part. What she never understood is that while she was making mood boards for the cafe that never launched, I was quietly buying equity in a software company with 4 other guys from my college cohort. I never bragged. Never posted about it. Never used our joint funds. Just paycheck by paycheck, bonus by bonus, I invested under a trust. One she signed off on back when she demanded we separate finances for freedom. I gave her freedom, wrapped it in a bow. She thought she was walking away from a paycheck. She was about to walk away from a fortune. But that night wasn't about the money. It was about the shift. The internal click. The moment you realize love isn't dying. It's already dead, embalmed. And she's dancing around the casket like it's karaoke night. I watched her sip her wine and whisper to her mom about new condos in downtown. Like I was just some friendly Uber driver who overstayed his ride. And I said nothing. Not because I was stunned, but because I was ready. And if you're still here, just a quick thing. Over 97% of folks who listen to stories like this don't hit that subscribe button. If you do, it actually helps the team keep going and bring even more of these to life. So, thanks if you already have, and if not, consider it. Alright, back to it. She asked me to take the leftovers home. I nodded, boxed them up, and thanked the waiter. On the drive back, she scrolled through her phone, probably texting her mother screenshots of condos and half-baked escape plans. She didn't say a word to me. No thank you. No good night. Just you left the AC too low this morning, as she slipped off her heels. I brushed my teeth, turned off the lights, listened to her sigh in that theatrical way she does when she wants me to ask what's wrong. I didn't, because I already knew. By the time her head hit the pillow, I had retrieved a business card from the back of my desk drawer. One I'd tucked away almost a year ago when she first started talking about financial independence and being separate but equal. A friend from a conference had passed it to me, said the guy specialized in private trust structures and long-term asset shielding. At the time, it felt like overkill. Now it felt like armor. I stood in the dark kitchen with the fridge humming behind me, staring at the card. The name was printed in silver serif. No website, no email, just a number, and the word, confidential. I dialed. Let it ring. A calm voice picked up. "Mr. Calloway, we've been expecting you." The door shut behind us with a soft click. She went straight upstairs, heels clicking, blouse half untucked like she'd just come back from a business lunch where she played the victim with perfect lighting. I stayed by the door for a second, staring at the 3 framed photos in the foyer. Our wedding, a trip to Sedona, her with that fake laugh and a mimosa, half lit by the Arizona sun. I paid for all of them. The venue, the trip, the photo prints. Even the ridiculous reclaimed wood frame she insisted on getting custom-made from some guy in Vermont who charged 3 times what it was worth because he foraged the lumber himself. Everywhere I turned in that house, I saw receipts. The couch she lounges on when she's too drained to cook. The kitchen island she swore she'd use for baking but only ever used for posting latte pics on Instagram. The home office with her ring light and whiteboard that still says, "Big Vision coming soon." Nothing in this house existed without me swiping a card, staying late at the office, skipping things I wanted so she could chase dreams she didn't have the discipline to finish. But the shame wasn't about the money. It was about how long I let her perform this marriage while I kept setting the stage. I hadn't been blind, just willfully quiet. And now she'd mistaken that quiet for weakness. She'd already moved into a new mindset, testing lines with her mother like I was a used car she was prepping to trade in. Still working at that same job, huh? The way they said that same job like it was a disease. They didn't realize that the job she mocked was never the point. The W-2 was just camouflage. The real play had started long ago, while she was busy curating her self-worth with Pinterest boards and startup kits that ended up in closets. I made my way to the garage, my little corner of the world she never bothered to redecorate. Beneath the socket wrench set and beside the half-assembled shelving unit sat a fireproof lockbox. Combination clicked open with a satisfying SNK. Inside, birth certificates, backup keys, and that one business card I hadn't touched in over a year. It wasn't flashy. Black matte, embossed silver print. Just a name and a number. Richard Dray and Associates. Private wealth/trust advisory. No website. That was the first sign it wasn't meant for people who needed to Google things. My old college roommate had slipped it to me during a quiet drink at a conference, saying, "If things ever go sideways, this guy makes you invisible, legally speaking." I didn't hesitate. I walked back inside, past the living room where she was now watching some reality show with one leg curled under her, sipping a glass of wine I paid for, on a subscription she forgot existed. Her face glowed in the TV's flicker. Not a care in the world. She didn't even look up as I climbed the stairs. Back in the bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed, waited a few minutes for the noise of the show to fill the hallway, then dialed the number. 3 rings. Then, "Mr. Calloway?" No introduction. No pleasantries. "You were referred to me by Garrett Winslow," I said, keeping my voice low. "I remember. He said you were patient. I take it that patience has expired. I'd like to set up a consultation." Silence on the other end for a breath. Discreetly, quietly, I said. Another pause. Then, "Are we talking about asset preservation? Future liquidity? Pre-litigation structuring?" I exhaled slowly. "All of it. Then we'll need to begin with your current asset map. Employment, side equity, any family holdings or inherited instruments. Also, your marital status, legally and situationally. She hasn't filed yet, but she will." "Perfect," he said, like we were discussing weather conditions for planting. "Then we can build the shield before the strike." Shield before the strike. That was exactly it. We scheduled a call for the next morning. I asked what I needed to prepare. "Everything she thinks she owns," he said. "Start there." When I hung up, she was already asleep, or pretending to be, the kind of stillness she used to weaponize during fights, letting me twist in the silence until I apologized for things I didn't do just to make the air breathable again. I watched her for a moment, hair perfectly arranged over the pillow. She looked like a magazine ad for peace, and all I could think was, "You have no idea what you just set in motion." Because I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to plead or scream or cry or draft long letters. I wasn't even going to play fair. I was going to vanish, but not the way she hoped. Not like a man discarded. Like a man who stepped into a shadow and came out holding the deed. She wanted freedom. She was about to choke on it. She came home one afternoon a year ago, all flushed and breathless like she just sprinted out of a TED Talk on reclaiming your feminine financial power. Hair in a loose ponytail, sunglasses still on, clutching a journal like it contained state secrets. "We should talk about money," she said. I was loading dishes. She slid onto the counter stool like she was about to coach me through a spiritual awakening. "It's not about you," she prefaced, which is always what people say before making it exactly about you. "It's about us, our autonomy, our independence. I just feel like I need financial freedom." I asked, "From what?" She blinked, caught off guard by the question, then smiled. "That's not the point." Of course not. The point was that she'd read a blog post by some influencer with a eucalyptus-scented divorce and wanted to rebrand our marriage as a business venture with loose fiscal ties. Separate accounts, maybe a holding trust for shared expenses. I just think it would be more empowering. Empowering for who? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. So I agreed. Not because I believed her speech, but because I was already 2 steps ahead. I'd consulted Richard again the week before, after watching her spend 3 hours on the phone with her friend Dana, whispering about condo units and stepping into my next phase. I knew where she was going. She thought separating our finances was laying groundwork for independence. What she didn't know, what she never bothered to ask, was what paperwork actually meant. How the trust was structured, who the trustee was, what clauses were embedded beneath all the pastel colors and soft fonts on the templated PDFs she'd approved like she was confirming a brunch reservation. I didn't hide anything. She signed it all. In fact, she rushed it. "I don't need to read all that legalese," she said, tapping her signature on the iPad while sipping kombucha. "It's just a formality." It wasn't. One clause, just one, inserted quietly, legally, right in the discretionary framework of the marital holding trust. Clause 14C. In the event of unilateral divorce proceedings initiated by either party, the trust vests full discretionary control to the grantor for a period of no less than 5 years. In English, if she files, I control it. All of it, including the lease on her boutique, the dividends from our mutual investment accounts, and the liquid assets she assumed would be split down the middle. She never read it, because she believed in the myth of fairness. That if she said the right phrases, empowerment, independence, fresh start, she could paint herself as the brave heroine walking away from a mediocre man. But the thing about empowerment is it works both ways. While she curated hashtags about growth and authenticity, I sat through 4 meetings with Richard and 2 trust attorneys, reclassifying our joint equity into layered holdings. All above board. All fully transparent to anyone who cared to look. She didn't. She was too busy planning her rebirth. We had matching folders now. Hers, full of ideas and affirmations. Mine, full of clauses, signatures, timestamps, and the knife she didn't know she handed me. One morning a few weeks later, she tossed me a sealed envelope from her new accountant. FYI, they're transferring my brand income to my own business account. Just makes sense now that we're set up, right? Sure, I said. Makes perfect sense. And it did. Every transaction, every step, every dumb little victory dance she did thinking she'd outgrown me was actually her digging her own legal grave. I wasn't pushing her. I wasn't begging her to stay. I was making sure that when she walked away, she wouldn't take a damn thing with her. She wanted out? Beautiful. But she'd go out clean. And alone. I'd already rewritten the rules. And the best part? She wrote her name at the bottom of every single page. She served me in the driveway. No ceremony, no drama. Just a thin manila envelope pressed into my chest with a too bright smile. "Let's not drag this out," she said. Like we were finalizing a brunch reservation instead of tearing a life in half. "I've already found a condo," she added, tucking a lock of hair behind her ear with theatrical ease. "It's in that new building on Marion with the rooftop gym. Dana's already there. She loves it." I looked at the envelope, then back at her. "You'll be okay, right?" she said, voice all mock concern, eyes already elsewhere. "I always am," I replied. She took that as confirmation and strutted inside like she'd just dropped off dry cleaning. I waited until the front door clicked shut before I stepped into the garage, sat on the workbench, and opened it. 68 pages. Neatly tabbed. Smelled like fresh toner and overconfidence. Her lawyer had gone full smug. Phrases like amicable dissolution and mutually agreed apportionment of assets were peppered through the document like parsley. Useless, decorative, meant to disguise something bland and overcooked. The tone read like a ransom note wrapped in self-help language. She got the house, of course. The car she drove that I paid off. The boutique lease I co-signed. And a list of furnishings so specific it included gray ceramic Buddha head in foyer. She left me the guest bedroom set and vintage camping gear, which was a fancy way of saying a cot and a cooler. No mention of the trust. No mention of the equity. No sign they even knew what they didn't know. The genius of it wasn't in what I was keeping, but in how utterly invisible it was. She assumed I was small, that I was what I seemed. A salaried man with a predictable schedule and worn-down shoes. The kind of man who folds. The kind of man who signs without reading. She didn't realize I was signing because I'd already read everything. Weeks ago. And I'd already changed it. I didn't argue. Didn't bargain. Didn't even ask for edits. I sat in the garage with a pen and a cup of bad gas station coffee, humming to myself while I flipped through each page, pretending to double-check figures that didn't matter. Because none of it mattered. Not the ceramic Buddha. Not the car. Not even the condo she'd picked out with Dana. A condo, I might add, that sat on a lease whose backer was still listed under my LLC. Something her lawyer would eventually realize far too late. Page 68. Signature line. I held the pen for a second, gave myself one breath. Not hesitation, just acknowledgement. This wasn't the moment I gave up. This was the moment I pulled the trigger. I signed. Then, slowly, casually, I pulled out my phone, snapped a photo of the signature page. Just one. Angle clean, timestamp visible. No flash. No drama. Not for the gram. For my counsel. Insurance. She never saw. She was upstairs packing, or pretending to. Probably rehearsing the line she'd deliver to her friends. He took it well. I think he always knew. She'd be half right. I folded the papers back into the envelope, sealed it, and walked upstairs. She was in the closet, rifling through handbags, humming that same three-note song she always hums when she's mentally spending money. I handed her the envelope. Done. She blinked. Already? I'm a fast reader. She tilted her head. Wow. Okay, good. This'll be good for both of us. Clean. Spotless. I said. She smiled. I told Dana you'd be cool about it. Tell her I'm cooler than she thinks. Then I left the room. I didn't slam the door. I didn't take one last look at the bed or the photos or the life that had just been hollowed out like a rotten fruit. I walked into the guest room, locked the door, and emailed the photo of the signature page to Richard with one line. We're a go. Start the clock. Because that's what this was now. A countdown. To when her lawyer would figure it out. To when the trust would shift into enforcement mode. To when the foundation's automatic reclassification of assets would leave her holding a shopping list and no card to swipe. She thought she'd won. She thought the pen was my white flag. She didn't realize it was a scalpel. By the following Monday, while she was picking out backsplash tiles for her condo's self-care nook, I was on the phone with Richard, walking through a transfer matrix that would have made a corporate accountant weep. To the outside world, I was still the same guy with the modest W-2 job and a coffee-stained Honda Civic. The guy who brought lunch from home and never missed a utility bill. The reliable mule. But mules carry gold, too. Quietly, 6 months earlier, the startup I'd co-founded with 4 former colleagues got acquired by a mid-sized private equity firm. It never made headlines. It wasn't sexy enough, just a back-end data compliance engine designed for logistics firms in Latin America. Not the kind of thing that gets you in TechCrunch. But profitable? Absolutely. And when it sold, I didn't go on vacation or buy a watch. I buried it. Richard helped me funnel the payout into a protected family foundation. The Callaway Initiative. If you ever want to look it up, you won't find my name on the masthead. Structured as a 509(a)(3) supporting organization, it operated under a university endowment as its host. I retained beneficiary rights through a secondary trustee position under the Marital Holding Trust. The same trust she'd signed away her rights to with a flick of the wrist and a sip of kombucha. We moved fast. Holdings shifted. The cap table was scrubbed. On paper, I was still just the guy from finance. But the equity, gone from public sight, resettled, tied into 3 vehicles she couldn't spell, much less access. She used my pay stubs and tax filings to estimate what she'd get in the split. She should have asked why my withholdings never seemed to match the mortgage payments, or how I kept funding her failed brands without dipping into savings. But no, she thought the numbers were fixed, predictable, the way she saw me. She even joked once, "At least you're consistent. That job will never surprise anyone." No, it won't, because that job was always the storefront, the packaging. The real value sat behind a firewall of trusts, subtrusts, and legal language thicker than her brand playbooks. The same week she changed her Facebook status to Starting Fresh Red Heart, I sat in a private notary's office in a strip mall beside a pawn shop, signing documents that removed my personal name from any direct affiliation with the assets. It was surgical, boring, beautiful. One form changed the registered agent on the LLC that held her boutique lease. Another reassigned the IP rights of a small analytics tool I'd built in my 20s, something she once called a nerdy little side project. That nerdy project was now licensed by 3 firms in 3 countries. Its royalties, reclassified as donations to the foundation, disbursed quarterly. Invisible in income disclosures. She'd built her entire clean split strategy on the illusion that my salary was all there was. She didn't know that while she played dress-up CEO in her boutique with zero profit, I'd helped patent a compliance algorithm used by 2 federal agencies. I kept receipts, not for revenge, but for precision. The real shift wasn't legal. It was philosophical. She thought this was about separation, fairness, moving on. She didn't realize it was about leverage. And I had it in spades. I forwarded the new asset structure to Richard's firm. They reviewed, confirmed, locked it. Then I burned the original folders. Literal flames, backyard, metal trash can, the whole cliché. The foundation held the payout from the acquisition, $4.3 million. Another $780,000 sat in a deferred comp vehicle that was about to vest in 30 days. Her paperwork showed an annual salary of $94,000. She thought that made her the breadwinner now. Let her think it. She even emailed me later that night. Some passive-aggressive quip about her condo's chef's kitchen, and how some of us are leveling up. I replied, "Glad you're happy. Let me know if the lease goes through." She said, "Why would you care about my lease?" I didn't respond, but I read the lease documents myself the next morning, because I still owned the LLC that owned the holding company that co-signed her commercial lease space. Not directly, not in a way that would show up on a background check, but structurally, legally. She just walked into a condo connected to my shadow, and she had no idea. That's what happens when you underestimate someone for too long. They learn to build in silence. She thought she'd won. You could hear it in her laugh, lighter, louder. The kind that bounces off the walls of overpriced wine bars and finds its way into Instagram reels with bad filters and worse captions. "New chapter," she wrote beneath a photo of a half-unpacked moving box and a cup of oat milk chai. Hashtag starting fresh. Her lawyer. Some smug, cuff-linked relic from a suburban firm with leather chairs, and a Yelp page full of 5-star reviews from recently divorced women named Tina, actually had the gall to say, "You're getting out of this very well." He tapped his Mont Blanc on the folder like he was closing a multimillion-dollar merger. "He has no private accounts, just the W-2. You'll come out ahead." And she believed him, because of course she did. He was saying what she already wanted to hear. That she was the hero, the phoenix, the woman who broke free from the dull husband with the dead-end job. Meanwhile, I was carrying boxes up to a second-floor walk-up that smelled like paint and anonymity. A small apartment on the edge of the city. No frills, no visitors, no history. Just 4 walls, a mattress on the floor, and a folding table that doubled as a desk and a place to eat. I didn't bring the couch. I didn't bring photos. Just a laptop, 3 file folders, and a stack of papers I read every night like scripture. The foundation was already live. The equity shifted. The leases reassigned. Her condo's utilities? Still tethered to a shell company I technically controlled through an offshore director. That boutique she loved to brag about, my baby, my dream, my escape, was in the final stage of a quiet buyout negotiation. She wouldn't know until the check bounced. But I said nothing. Let her paint her fiction. She started doing these day-in-my-life posts for her small social media following. Nothing major, just videos of her morning routine, her tea selection, the boutique window she changed once a week like it meant something. The kind of performative independence that fools people who haven't seen what it really costs. She told friends I took it well, that I never put up a fight, that I was probably relieved to finally be free of her ambition. Her version of ambition was a Pinterest board and 3 unread books about branding. I let it all stand. She posted a picture with Dana. Matching yoga outfits, smug little peace signs. The caption said, "Some people survive, others glow up." She didn't notice that the boutique's landlord hadn't responded to her last check yet. She didn't notice that her new utilities required a secondary verification, or that her business card transactions had started flagging, because I made sure the split looked clean. That was the trick. Don't contest anything. Don't fight for the house. Don't whine about the car or the artwork or even the accounts she assumed I forgot. Agree to everything. Smile. Be cooperative. The court loves a quiet man. Because while she was busy calculating the worth of my W-2 and her future closet space, she didn't stop to think about why I was being so agreeable. The irony was rich enough to bottle. At one point, she emailed me about a piece of furniture I could come pick up. Some oak dresser I'd built years ago. "I don't need it anymore. Feel free to get it before the new tenant moves in." I responded, "Already got everything I need." And I had time. I had the trust. And I had the kind of silence that comes when no one's looking at you anymore, when they think they've already taken everything worth taking. She paraded around with her friends like she'd escaped something toxic. But the truth was, the only thing toxic was how certain she was that she understood the rules. She didn't. The rules were written in clauses, and I let her walk right past every one of them. Her lawyer sent a final email confirming receipt of the settlement. Thanks for your cooperation. This has been refreshingly smooth. It had been, because I'd been the one holding the mop. She was mid-latte when the call came in. Almond milk, extra cinnamon. Because Dana said, real women don't do dairy. Her phone buzzed with that smug custom ringtone she set for her lawyer, and she picked up expecting another round of congratulations or a cute update on the final property transfer. Instead, she got silence. Then, there's been a complication. She laughed. Don't scare me like that. What? He forgot to close a utility account. I already paid the new deposit. More silence. Then came the tone shift. Sharp, clinical, like a man realizing too late he missed a step. His name is still on the LLC. Her smile faltered. What LLC? The one listed on your boutique lease. She blinked. No, that was transferred, he signed off. The split is done. He didn't remove himself. He just allowed you managing control temporarily. That's not what the lease says. I checked it with. He retained ownership through a layered structure. It passed through a parent company registered under a family foundation. A what? And he just invoked trustee control under Clause 14C of the Marital Holding Trust. Her brain seized at the words. It was like someone speaking a language she'd pretended to know in high school. She recognized terms vaguely, but couldn't put them together. What does that mean? She snapped. A pause. Then her lawyer exhaled. Slow, long, like someone lowering a body into cold water. It means, he controls it. Silence. You don't. There was a tremor in her lawyer's voice that hadn't been there before. Not when he bragged about how much she'd walk away with. Not when he laughed about some guys being just grateful to be let go. That tremor now? That was the sound of a man realizing he'd missed a landmine, and that she was standing on it. She hung up, didn't say goodbye, didn't finish her latte, just stared out the cafe window, hand trembling as she pulled up her boutique's online portal. She tried to log into the leaseholder dashboard, access denied. Tried the vendor accounts, flagged for review. Her store's POS system? Locked. A little red banner flashing across the screen. Temporary administrative hold, trustee action initiated. She stood, didn't grab her bag, didn't say a word to the barista who complimented her earrings 5 minutes earlier. Outside, the sun felt wrong. The noise of traffic and laughter on the patio, wrong. Too bright, too casual. Like the world didn't just shift under her feet. She called Dana. Straight to voicemail. She called the boutique. Busy tone. Her phone buzzed again. This time a notification. A forwarded message from her own accountant. Subject. Urgent. Foundation holdings and lease discrepancy. Body. Hi. I was reviewing the changes made to your business structure. You failed to disclose the vesting clause tied to the trust agreement from last year. As per the updated filings, Mr. Calloway has discretionary control until 2028. She dropped the phone. Literally. It hit the sidewalk, bounced, cracked the screen. A year ago, she had insisted on separating finances to feel free. A year ago, she'd sat on the couch laughing, waving her hand in the air, saying, "Don't bore me with legal talk, just send me the forms." She thought she was smart. She thought she was free. Now she was standing in designer sandals on hot concrete, sweating through her linen blouse while people around her sipped cold brew and scrolled TikTok. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't begged. He hadn't even fought. He just waited. Waited for her to sign. Waited for her to gloat. Waited for her to walk into the future she built, on paperwork she never read. The boutique. The lease. The accounts. The very foundation she thought she left behind. All his. And the door she'd slammed shut? She was now locked on the wrong side of it. She walked into the meeting room like she still believed she had the upper hand. Hair curled, heels sharp, blazer cinched like she was presenting at a board meeting that only existed in her imagination. Her lawyer trailed behind, not making eye contact, clutching his leather briefcase like a life raft. I was already seated at the head of the table, casual. No tie, no ego, just a folder resting in front of me like it was lunch. Richard sat to my left, silent, flipping through his tablet. He didn't even look up when they entered. She didn't sit right away. "You've crossed a line," she said, jaw tight. "I don't know what you think this foundation is or what game you're playing, but locking my store's accounts? Freezing my vendors? That's malicious." Her voice echoed a little more than she wanted it to. Even she flinched at the acoustics. I gestured to the empty seat across from me. "Please, sit. You'll want both hands free for this." Her lawyer muttered something about civil tone and not here to fight. He was already sweating, upper lip shining under the fluorescence. She shot him a glare and sat down, arms crossed. I didn't speak right away. I opened the folder and turned it toward her. Inside, dated asset reports, chain of custody filings, trustee resolutions, and the killer, 2 pages of her own signature, notarized, time-stamped, archived. One of them in her handwriting, beneath the clause she'd never bothered to read. Her lawyer leaned forward, and his face changed after the second paragraph. "This isn't standard." "No," I said. "It's not." I tapped the final document gently. Per Clause 8.4 of the Discretionary Control Framework, triggered by unilateral divorce, full management authority of the marital holding trust, all derivative entities, and their operational subsidiaries passes to the founding spouse. I looked directly at her now. No anger, no gloating, just clarity. "That's me." She blinked. "You're bluffing." "Then litigate it," Richard said without looking up. "But fair warning, if you breach any part of the Foundation's operational agreements, you'll default on your boutique lease, your vendor contracts, and your revolving line of credit, all of which are still under governance of the trust." Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Her lawyer cleared his throat. "We weren't aware of this clause." "That's because she didn't read it," I said. "She was too busy finding condos." Richard slid another document forward. "You'll also see that the lease for the boutique includes an emergency exit clause. If the managing entity invokes a trustee override, the tenant must vacate within 30 days. Her head whipped toward her lawyer. "Tell me this can be reversed." He stammered then. "It would be difficult." "No," I said. "It would be binding." She stood. "This is revenge." "No," I said calmly. "This is structure. You knew I wouldn't read it all. You set me up." "I trusted your independence," I said, shrugging. "You insisted on it. I just made sure you could enjoy it, without touching my work." Her hand trembled on the chair. "You're actually going to take everything." "I didn't take anything," I said. "You gave it. I just held the door while you walked through it." She stared down at the paperwork like it was a foreign language, like the ink itself had betrayed her. The truth was, this meeting was a formality. I didn't need it. She did. She wanted to be seen, wanted to play victim before the curtain dropped. But I gave her no audience. Richard closed the folder and stood. "We'll send the updated notices to your vendors this afternoon. Any further use of the boutique's brand name will be considered a violation of the holding trust's licensing agreement." "Considered by who?" She spat. He paused. "By the board, which, per the trust's reallocation schedule, consists of Mr. Calloway, the director of the hosting endowment, and myself." She fell back into the chair, stunned. Her lawyer didn't move. I gathered my things. No dramatic exit. No final punchline. Just one last glance at her over my shoulder. "You wanted a clean break," I said. "I cleaned everything, and I left her there. No fight, no shouting, just her. And the sound of the paper she never bothered to read. She didn't cry in the car, didn't scream, just drove in a daze, eyes forward, hands clenched at 10 and 2 like she was back in a high school driving test. Her GPS barked directions she already knew by heart. 17 minutes to her mother's house, right off Grover Road, the one with the rusted mailbox and rose bushes that bloomed unevenly in the spring. The house where she used to brag over coffee about stepping into her next phase and finally living without limits. Now she could barely pull into the driveway. Her mother opened the door with her usual skepticism. "You didn't call?" she muttered, stepping aside. But when she saw her daughter's face, white as a bone, lips pressed so tight they were practically non-existent, she didn't ask questions. She just poured tea. The same chamomile she'd always used, as if herbal steam could fix legal ruin. At the kitchen table, the same one where she once joked that I was lucky to have her. She unraveled. "He tricked me," she whispered, eyes darting, throat tight. "He planned this." Her mother stirred her tea, slow and silent. She didn't blink. Everything's gone, she continued. The boutique lease, the foundation, even the vendors are rerouting invoices. Like I don't even exist in the system anymore. Her mother's spoon paused mid-clink. She set it down, folded her hands, and looked her daughter in the eye. He warned you, she said quietly. Silence. You laughed. The words landed like glass against tile. Not loud, but shattering all the same. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Not a defense. Not an excuse. There was none. Not this time. Because it was true. I had warned her. In my silence. In my patience. In the way I never chased her. Never begged. Just let her go with that same quiet calm she used to mistake for weakness. She looked down at her phone, desperate for distraction. For anything to pull her out of the kitchen and the weight of her mother's stare. A new email. Subject line. Recommendation, settlement strategy. She opened it, heart already sinking. From Jason H. Levins ESQ. To client. Subject. Recommendation, settlement strategy. Body. Following the review of all filings, foundation directives, and remaining lease structures, I recommend settling quietly. There is no path to regain operational control through litigation without risking further financial exposure. Mr. Calloway retains the high ground, both legally and financially. The rest of the message was just legal padding. Useless. She placed the phone face down on the table. Her shoulders sagged. Her breath hitched. Her mother took a sip of tea. You thought he was boring, she said. He was building. The hum of the fridge filled the space where pride used to live. She stared at the floor. The knot in her throat tightened. All those nights she'd mocked him for staying late at work. All those dinners with Dana, whispering about trading up. The smirks, the sideways comments, the performance of dissatisfaction. It was never that I was too small. It was that she thought she was too big. And now even her mother saw the truth. The same woman who once egged her on, "You could do better. You're too smart to be tied down to that salary," was now staring at her like a kid who burned the house down with a box of matches and a shrug. She stood abruptly, chair legs screeching against the tile. I need to fix this. Her mother didn't stop her, didn't offer advice, didn't reach out, because what could she say? She'd already chosen her side. And now she was watching it fall apart, brick by brick, clause by clause. As her daughter stepped out the door into the cold gray afternoon, she didn't call out, didn't say goodbye. She just picked up her tea, stirred once more and said, almost to herself, he didn't trick you. You ignored him. She hadn't left the apartment in days. The walls felt closer now. Like the square footage was shrinking every time she opened another bill she couldn't pay or watched another auto payment fail. The boutique was officially shuttered. A typed notice from the trust's legal firm had arrived 2 weeks ago, clinical and bloodless. Effective immediately, due to violation of lease terms and noncompliance with Clause 8.4 of the Discretionary Control Framework, occupancy is terminated. All branding associated with the enterprise will be retired. Future use is prohibited. There was no courtroom, no warning, just termination. She tried calling the bank. They told her the accounts were frozen pending internal review. She emailed the leasing company, only to receive an automated reply. Please redirect inquiries to the holding entity on file. That entity led to a P.O. box and a generic corporate shell name she didn't recognize, because she never bothered to read the filings. Her social accounts still had the old photos, the brunches, the quotes, #freedom, #unbothered, #clean slate. Now even her friends were quiet. Dana had stopped replying after the third panicked voicemail. A few mutuals had unfollowed her completely. Too much drama, one had texted another. She saw the screenshot by accident, sent from a friend who forgot she was still copied. The heat was inconsistent in the new condo. One room stayed cold no matter what she set the thermostat to. She started sleeping in sweats. The same woman who once joked about needing silk sheets to sleep like a queen was now curling under a pile of clearance blankets, checking her email like it might deliver salvation. That's when her phone rang. Unknown number. Local area code. She almost didn't answer. But something, some instinct, maybe shame in a new costume, made her swipe. Hello. There was a pause. Then a voice she hadn't heard in over 3 weeks. Her lawyer. Quiet. Flat. And unlike his usual cocky rhythm, he sounded afraid. Hey, I wanted to call instead of emailing. I just got off a review call with the opposing counsel's compliance rep. Silence on her end. "I need you to know something," he said, and now his voice had a tremble. "You had no idea, did you?" "About what?" she managed. "The sale, the trust, the foundation structuring, the secondary IP holding, the lease clause." Each word hit like a drop of cold water from a ceiling she thought was solid. "We did a full forensic audit after the transfer. We missed everything. Everything. His salary was never the point. It was camouflage." She didn't speak. "You didn't lose in court," he continued. "There was no fight to lose. You walked away from it all. You signed away everything. He didn't take anything. A breath. You gave it." She let the phone slide from her ear, let it fall screen down onto the blanket. It vibrated once more. Probably the lawyer still talking, not realizing she wasn't there anymore. She stared at the ceiling. The same crack in the plaster she'd noticed 2 weeks ago. It hadn't gotten worse. It hadn't changed. But now it felt like it was splitting the entire room in half. She didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later when she realized no one was going to knock. No apology was coming. No fix. No court date. No second round. She thought she'd rewritten her life. But all she'd done was sign herself out of it. And the man she dismissed with a smirk and a signature? He never raised his voice. He just raised the floor beneath her and let her fall.